gentlemen, welcome to our fabulous CRM-Konvos show. And I just had to kill some noises around me as the last two starting moments. I was a bit surprised. Oh, the intro video is over. And oh, I have some magic sound. I hear more than one Ralph. So welcome aboard. We have a fantastic opportunity to have today with us David Fauser. And David will introduce himself in a short while. Why are we so happy to have David with us? Because it is always a completely different situation if you have a real knowledgeable user as a guest who can give you the reality check and the honest talk of, I have experienced the fantastic moments and I have seen there are some challenges and we have overcome those. So a warm welcome to David, and we are happy for the next 59 minutes or 58 minutes. Yeah.
You forgot one point. He's also a great guy to hang out with.
This is a mixing experience till now, but I love to get acquainted to as well. But you made a good point, such as vivid communication is by getting the audience into talking and writing, such as if you want to make some comments in Facebook, some comments in LinkedIn, feel free to do so. And we are happy to get David, and for the little one knowledge we have to share with you our experiences on the topic you are asking. Now, David, back to you.
Sure.
What's a bit about your background? Have you been doing freezing stuff all your life long, or how did you become an expert for refrigerators and
He's
cooling
Canadian.
systems?
That's about freezing.
Yeah, well, the funny thing about refrigeration these days, it's sort of a dead topic because we're more moving into thermal, and we're moving towards a whole heating, cooling, and refrigeration, because it really is all about moving thermal energy. And so I'm pretty excited about, as we're dealing with some of the climate challenges, and refrigeration is one of these key things that we have to focus on, because as our Earth warms, we need more cooling. And so it's quite an opportunity, quite an interesting space to be in right now. And I've been in refrigeration right when I got out of school. I finished a business degree and I applied to a bunch of places, and this is the place that gave me an opportunity. And I grew up right from the ground level. Like, I started off in the lowest position in sales you could start in the organization. And then I've been able to, fortunately, be in the right places at the right time. And I've made my way up to the director of sales and marketing. We have about 150 salespeople across the enterprise, across North America, 22 locations, 23 sales managers. And we do everything with refrigeration, right from your design, conceptual design, the installation. We make these customized, humongous systems, then we service them afterwards, and then we remove them at the end of life. And being here for 20 years, I'm actually involved with replacing some of the equipment I would have sold when I first started. So it makes me feel quite old in this industry. So anyways, thank you for having me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate coming on here for the next hour and being part of this. So thank you.
What changed most across this period in the industry?
Across the last 20 years, Thomas? Yeah, I think that, we as a company started 110 years ago. And we were started with natural refrigerants. And natural refrigerants really are refrigerants that, if leaked to the atmosphere, they have no ill effect on the environment. They're made of natural elements like CO2 and ammonia. They're very, very efficient. And when we first started to build refrigeration systems, that was a refrigerant of choice. And so when our company was founded, our biggest competition was, I'm calling from Toronto here, was ice from Lake Ontario. People used to harvest the ice, cover it in sawdust, put it underground, and they would use it from time to time. As a matter of fact, they would take ice and they would ship it from Toronto or Boston all the way to Los Angeles, where they needed ice. Was a real, if you think about it, if they had no way to create it, they had to get it from somewhere. So it was a real delicacy in some of those warmer places. So we started with these natural refrigerants, but the problem back then, like 110 years ago, is they weren't safe. And so because they didn't have the technology to make them safe, so that's why these synthetics were invented, like Freons that you'd have in your car and other places. And so the biggest change that I've seen in the last 20 years that I've been here is this pure shift of heading back into naturals, heading back to where we started, and then the advantages that they have, and looking at things from a holistic point of view. And I was just at a trade show recently, and I was just blown away with how many companies have these amazing innovations to help us through some of the climate challenges we're facing. So anyways, yeah, that's what I've seen, Thomas, is some of the big changes in my past 20 years.
And how did that
Impressive.
reflect on the sales process?
Sorry, what's that? Oh, yeah. So when I started, believe it or not, it was crazy. My salesman, we used to use pen and paper for estimating. And we used to use fax machines to, to fax our tenders and stuff, and fax quotes. And it was just totally different. There was like, I remember talking to my sales manager at the time. It's like, what are my sales targets? He goes, well, just sell as much as you can. And it was a completely different environment. And, it was a good environment for learning and stuff like that, but it really wasn't measured in the sense that, how do we, take this to the next level? So it was really a large company and a family business. Back then, we were probably a third of the size as what we are today from a Salesforce perspective. Probably had 50 salespeople across the company 20 years ago. So it was a lot smaller, and you knew everybody. So, but it was a lot more, I don't want to use the word relaxed, but it was just a lot more relaxed, I guess, and less, I don't want to use the word focused, but it just, we were there to solve solution, very engineering-minded organization, very customer-focused. So,
And how did you find new customers at the time? Was it all incoming? Were they coming to you, or what was prospecting for new business like?
So 20 years ago, and that was my job, was prospecting, which was just purely calling up. Like I would, in our business, there's only so many organizations that require a large-scale refrigeration. So food plants, cold storage, ice rink. So I would go down to the University of Toronto. I would, you get this Scott directory, and I would photocopy it, and I would circle the companies. I'd give them a call, and it was old school, and see if there's a chance for us to provide some services, right? That's how we used to do it.
Tradition.
Like the old days, how to sell a large computer from Honeywell Bull.
Same thing, yeah.
Same thing, absolutely. And at these days, we need a cooling system for such a large machine as well. Yeah? Never a computer was running without a cooling system and air conditioning. Yeah,
it's pretty mission critical for sure.
Yeah,
You don't want to fry the chips.
A lot of money on the line.
Yeah. Well, if it was pen and paper and a copy of the business directory, then how is it?
And a phone call, probably.
And,
Yeah.
and
Of course,
a
a phone call. Can't work without that phone.
driving by.
For sure.
Yeah, well, pigeons and drums wouldn't work. Yeah.
No, we weren't. Luckily, I wasn't around with pigeon carriers. No, that was before me, thankfully.
And now?
Yeah, so now it's been a transformation. So through my transformation, I was really, really fortunate because I say I joined this company right after school, but there was another company in between for a year, and it was a technology company. And at that time, I was introduced to a CRM. It was called ACT.
Of course.
So, right when I started, in the back of my mind, I always knew that there was something that could do better. So when I took my first management job back in 2007, I went to one of the regions, and we put, to try it out, we put ACT in, and it was great because it was a very small branch. We only had 3 people. And so we were able to get some really good results. Like we were able to demonstrate that we knew what our pipeline looked at. We had a way of organizing the team and set some targets and started to go a little bit deeper with that. As I took my next role, bigger branch, got them on ACT as well too. And then eventually I was looking after all of Ontario, and I put all of Ontario, which is our biggest region, about a third of our sales force, on ACT. And I know that you gentlemen would know what ACT is, but having 50 people syncing was a nightmare. Like it was a nightmare, right?
Yeah, that's it. At least that's like 5 times what it was designed for at the time. And you could do that. ACT was extensible, arguably still is, because you'll find people using it. But yeah, that's a load. That's quite a load on that system.
And one of the exercises in the old days was with ACT, Ventive, or other tools that you really employed a large free place, a hall, or a fabric company, or a ground where you could set up 100 desktop systems and you on command try to synchronize with your server to get realistic, not from the vendor given numbers, how fast the synchronization is and how they do the synchronization. Do they only get little deltas to synchronize, or do they get the full data set and send it back and forth? Yeah. And one of the coolest things in those days with ACT was that as a mobile fan, I had a Psion. And on a Psion 3C or 5, which was highly sophisticated at these times, there was no Nokia with any keyboards or that. The communicator was not out yet. That was working. And that was a real kick. Yeah. So you could be a mobile Bedouin these days if you were one of the smarter guys. Yeah. And you had a really cool setup with ACT, and this was for a certain amount of time. One of the real trustworthy systems where your sync with the Psion was working and was a mobile reliable system, which was not too tricky to handle. Yeah. And ease of use. How do you manage these days the ease of use?
With Zoho or with ACT?
Well, I trust that you are no longer on ACT these days.
No.
There was a change, I guess.
There was a change, yeah. So, I mean, the great news is that even with that system that was easy to use, ACT, the results were outstanding because I came from a sales background and I was able to, my full thought was, how do I design a system that makes the lives of our salespeople easier, right? Yes. So from the ground up. So I think that there was no finance involvement, no IT involvement in any of this. So it's just really about how do we enable the sales team to make their job easier. So because of that, we had 100% adoption with ACT, which was really, really good. Yeah. And then we started to see really good results. So the president at that time said, like, I think I want to do this for the rest of the sales force. And I think I'd like for you to take a bigger role with the company. And then we went through this really crazy, I want to say 2.5 year journey of interviewing these all of these different CRM providers and all the big names out there, and that was quite a journey. That was a real learning experience, and it was pretty interesting because it was the first time that I had been on the other side of the table as a buyer, as opposed to a salesperson for a major capital decision. Mm-hmm. And and I got to see what it was like to have these people pitch these things to me. And it was pretty crazy, the disconnect, I want to say, and trying to understand our business and what we were looking for. And it was far more challenging than I thought it was going to be. Because in sales, you're always saying, man, it must be so easy to be the buyer because they get to make all the decisions and they have to see everything. They don't have that pressure. But I'll tell you, when you're in the hot seat and you're like accountable for a large spend, and if it doesn't work, you're responsible. There's a lot of pressure on being a buyer. Mm-hmm.
That is a very important message.
Mm-hmm. Be right or be elsewhere.
That's right.
Let's circle a little back to ACT. So you said you wanted to make your team's lives easier. How? What did you change for them?
Yeah. So our jobs. So we have two main components to our business, and it's not that much different than a car dealership in a way. We have our new systems, our capital projects, and we have our service team. Right. And everything that we do is customized. Like no two refrigeration systems are the same. And then we deal with thousands of different vendors because every system has different components, different brand names, different parts, and different model numbers. Like you think about pick a Acura MDX today versus one that's 20 years ago, they have different parts. So that's what we deal with when we go out to the market. We could be dealing with any sort of parts. Mm-hmm. And a lot of what we do is we have to give somebody a scope of work and a price, right? Mm-hmm. So how we made the salesperson's life easier is every single branch had a different estimating sheet and they all had different quotation methods. So the first thing that we did was we developed a unified quotation sheet that they could build their estimates fast and easy, but they could also look at other people's in the company. So instead of being your own island, your own person trying to reinvent the wheel every time, the guy can go into the system and type in, hey, compressor overhaul for this brand. And then they could see maybe 15 or 20 other examples, and they could maybe start a little bit further down the road. And the second thing we did was we had these templates that we designed. So we designed these templates for different things, and then it made their life easier, but it also organized all their opportunities. It organized all their accounts. So it just really organized everything for them, which made their life easier as a starting point. And of course, there's a lot more that I don't want to take up the whole call describing some of the things. But the other thing, Thomas, that comes to mind is really the thing that I was, as coming from a sales point of view, was the messaging of this is like, you're on the team, you wear the sweater, we're there to coach you and to help you out. And that's really what we did with it. Nobody got fired because of the results in the CRM. It was all about how do we help get you use this information to get you to the next level.
What I find cool with that is change the estimation method. Now, us being humans, we love what we do, and we are sort of reluctant to change it because what we are doing is great, of course. So how did you manage to align all of these different methods?
Yeah, I remember when I first rolled it out to the sales team with one of the groups, there's 50 people in the room, and I went home to my wife that night and I said, I just made the worst mistake of my life, because it was intense, because everybody has their way of doing things. So the way if that, Thomas, was the communication and messaging. So at that time, one of the messages that was communicated was, your way's not wrong. Our way's not right. This is the way. This is just a way, and together, if we do this together, then we will be able to all benefit from it, because instead of competing like a bunch of small companies, we compete as a large company. We'll all be speaking the same language. So I before I did it, I asked for examples of everybody's different quotation methods, and I had one-on-ones with them. I found out the best. I incorporated that into the sheet, but making it extremely simple. It was all about dumbing it down. Like, I don't always dumbing it down, but just getting to what is actually needed without all the bells and whistles, to a good, solid estimating sheet that incorporated the best ideas of everybody's.
So you actually talked to the users and listened to what they have to say. It's a surprisingly novel approach.
Well, something where you said that there was a certain disconnect, such as if you were experiencing the positive results from your end, talking to your potential users and your existing teams and all their learnings, and then now you go to the market, and that journey, as you said, 2.5 years, that is flashing me. It's a long journey, and what you mentioned is a certain disconnect, such as, did they not listen to you? Did they not understand what you really wanted and needed? Can you elaborate a bit on
Sure,
that?
yeah, absolutely. Like, I remember, like, the old saying, nobody ever got fired for buying an IBM computer. I know that old saying, and I felt the same way with another large corporation in the CRM space. And I remember even coaching the sales rep to say, okay, here's what you need to present. Like, I couldn't imagine in my whole life of sales ever having a vendor call me and coaching me through what needs to be said and how this needs to go. But they just came in with boilerplate presentations and idealistic presentations that just did not meet our business in any which way or form. And the one thing to me, and Thomas picked up on this really quickly, was the estimating part of it is such a key part of that was the key part that we need. We needed a flexible estimating program that was integrated in the CRM. I did not want it not in the CRM that we'd have to upload something, because salespeople, I don't want to use the word lazy, but that's not important to them. So I wanted to make sure an estimate was integrated in the CRM. That way all of our opportunities would be in there. And if all of our opportunities were in there, then we'd have a useful tool to understand what our pipeline looks like. So, but as going through that, they just weren't able to connect in any which way or form to be able to have that. And I'm not talking rocket science here. Like, it's not a rocket science. I just wanted to open an opportunity and have a customized estimator go into it. So it was very, very challenging.
Okay, now
It's surprising, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Continuing with the story, so you had ACT, and you said it worked great.
Mm-hmm.
You saw the results. You had 100% pickup, which is beyond amazing, actually. And then apparently it wasn't enough. What was the trigger to take the next level?
Well, the trigger was when I got the new promotion, and we'd be adding like a bunch more salespeople. And I knew the complications with the syncing. So at that point, after the 2.5 year journey, my recommendation was to go back to have regional act setups. So we would have maybe we'd have a bunch of act systems that would be regional, because I knew that it could do the job. I called my programmer up at the time, or the person that we worked with ACT, and then that's how I got introduced to Zoho, because he said, listen, I'm repping a new line of CRMs. I think that I could probably replicate what you do in Zoho. It seems to be very easy to be able to use, and I sort of understand that. And at the time, I was like, I don't think so. I've already sat through 15 CRM programs, and I just don't think I know this is going to work. But anyways, he then convinced us to take a look at it, and that's how that's sort of how we got the confidence. Because to me, I couldn't stand the thought of syncing, because at least once or twice a week, we'd have some major issue with ACT. And because it was so integrated into our sales process, when ACT was down, our salespeople were down. And my phone would be going crazy. So
that is like a mobility kill. If you take off the ropes from a tank, you won't move. And if sales is committed and people are using the system, which is fantastic, because you had a proof of concept, they love it, they use it, it makes life easier, then don't take it away. And just out of curiosity, the estimate, how complicated is it? Is it configure, price, and quote in a little one, or a light version, or is it getting really complicated?
No, it's not configure, price, quote, because we have so many different parts. We can't load them on the system. So we just needed something that was just, unfortunately, like I said, we deal with millions of different parts, thousands of different applications. So we just needed the ability for a salesperson to go in and type in the quote and type the pricing needed, and to build up an estimate with labor and subcontractors and material and all these different things that we deal with in a way that's customizable, but takes it back into a CRM system so we can analyze it for different things. And we analyze all sorts of different things from there to try to understand our metrics. But I mean, it wasn't rocket science at all. Like, it's just, they just couldn't seem to wrap their head around it. And I think that there's no doubt in my mind that Microsoft Dynamics or Salesforce or one of these, well-known CRM systems couldn't handle what we do. It's just that the salespeople that were selling to us couldn't understand what we wanted and couldn't give me the confidence that if we chose that solution, that they could do it. So I mean, that's sort of where it's at.
So failure of their salespeople to enable your salespeople.
And that is that if somebody as a CEO is stepping on the floor and showing you his iPhone and say, with this instrument, I steer and drive my organization, I only need that, and he is not performing well, then there should be a rethinking approach. And by that thing, I would go for, you have taken this, the Stier bei den Hörnern, the bull by the horns, such as you have taken the opportunity that you knew what you need. You talked to the ones which you had the impression they did understand and listen. And how was the journey from there on? Was it then a bit more easy, or were there some steps in between?
Well, what do you mean after I decided to go with Zoho as a vendor?
Well, the vendor, it could be an implementation partner. It could be, there are some differences in from the starting point when you said, okay, now we have chosen that one.
Yeah.
We have, they understood what we wanted. And how was the journey continued then?
So the journey was not smooth necessarily, right? But there was an implementation that happened because we had to do a bit of customization. But I think the thing is, like, when making a decision like this, there were some non-negotiables, and I felt comfortable that in the bigger picture that we would get there. So I didn't really try to get too upset when things didn't work out, because I gained that experience from the ACT trials and tribulations. But in the bigger picture, if you keep marching forward, then you're going to get to where you want to go. And I think that one of the keys to our success with this rollout was we stayed true to the basics. of what's going to make the sales life easier. So every time we had a decision that came up in regards to the implementation of the design of the system, the go no go was, will this make the sales guy's life easier? And that was a really good North Star, as you could say, to allow us to steer towards making something that was enabling our sales force.
Which KPIs did you measure in order to stay on this path?
Yeah, so Thomas, these KPIs are always evolving all the time. So back then it was really, really simple. We developed this system that first of all looked at their overall results, and then we had sort of a layer. We call it the layered solution, the 4-layer solution. And so if the results weren't there, we took a look at what they had sold but had not been put in, had not been installed yet. And then if that didn't look good, then we took a look at their pipeline. And then if their pipeline wasn't there, then we would take a look at their how they're developing business, what strategies they're using. So it really turned into a real coaching exercise. So the KPIs that we were using were the sales coverage in their pipeline, how much they sold that's not been put in yet, days to close. And then what we did was like a bit of what we call the Pepsi challenge, right? Where we took we were able to do this with Zoho Analytics. We have all these sort of metrics, and you could compare 2 salespeople side by side, because it's hard to see one person and say, are they successful? Because you don't really know what good looks like. But if you start taking other salespeople and comparing them with key metrics side by side, then you could really start to find coaching opportunities. And I'll tell you, even our top performers, the guys that walk on water here, there's still areas in their KPIs where they can improve and get a little bit better. And it's only when you're showing them the data that there really is no emotion. And I find the data cuts out the emotion, especially with salespeople who can be a little bit emotional from time to time. And then you can get into a really good conversation in regards to how do we get to the next level from a very tactical and realistic point of view, before arguing that, do I have enough leads or don't I? That you're sort of getting past sort of the emotional, egotistical stuff, and you're diving right into what matters.
I guess that's kind of a leadership question now, actually. So this is one of my pet peeves. In quotes, there are not many leaders. There are managers, but not leaders. So if you start comparing me to Marshall, on an individual level, well, he's got more hair, then of course, on both of our sides, there might be an at least astonished reaction. Well, not necessarily a positively astonished one. So how did you overcome this to get into or convince me and Marshall that you're not controlling us, but helping us?
Well, because I really am helping. Like, I'm not really controlling, because I mean that was the messaging, is like, it's a safe space. It's not judgment. And it's just a way, like, how do we get better? And I grew up playing sports. I played a lot of hockey when I was growing up, and really it's the same way that my coach would have brought things to me at that time was, you're part, like, there's no fear of being off the team, right? And it's more of a continuous learning approach strategy, and take it or leave it, right? Take it or leave it. But I haven't had a conversation where anybody was upset or they fought back. It's the data's the data, but it wasn't never from a judging point of view. It was more or less. So it's really in the delivery of how you do it. I'm by far not perfect at all. Like I make a lot of mistakes with the coaching stuff. It's not easy. Sometimes you say the wrong things, but it's just all about, like, how do you create that safe space that it's not an area of judgment. Like, it's just about how do we get better. And people know the answer. Like, even the guys that are struggling more than anybody else, who really, they know the answer, what they need to do. It's not a surprise when they see the metrics.
Right. Did that data ever lead you to new insights, like areas of improvement that you didn't look at before?
100%. Yeah, 100%. It led to a lot of improvement areas, a lot of things, and it busted a lot of myths, like old myths that we would have had. Like, I'll give you an example of a myth. One of them would have been that it takes a year to develop our large projects. It doesn't. I mean, the data is it doesn't. These things come up quickly, and we've got to be able to respond quickly, right? So that was a myth that we always had for years because we didn't have any way of sort of measuring it. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that we were able to really dispel some of it, and it's through the data that really helps out.
How long does it take now?
Well, it takes a lot less, Thomas. Yeah, for sure, it takes a lot less.
No trade
And
secrets here.
the thing is, though, it always took a lot less.
Yeah.
It always took a lot less. It was just a myth that it takes so long to develop these things.
Okay,
And
what are the
through
reasons?
the data, it just was a lot faster than what we thought, which means that when we had opportunities come in, we were able to adjust the speed and how we responded.
Yeah.
And because we know that the decision is not a year-long decision, and it's a fast decision. It's about getting stuff back. So, I mean, as a result, from when we put this in system in and these systems in place, we've nearly doubled our sales force, and we've nearly doubled our results as well too for a 110-year-old company, which I think is pretty fantastic way of just being able to be there. Yeah.
And what I thought by your answer is that seeing the data, you named it the Pepsi contest, such as here is Coke, here's Pepsi, which is tasting different, or which is more your liking, then that was by own experience. And I guessed that transparency and the learning opportunity, such as, okay, now I can ask him how he is doing that magic, yeah, because we have the same starting point, the same estimation sheet, the same methodology. By the way, do you use a sales methodology? Question mark.
Yeah, no, we do, and that's such a good point, Ralph, because even the worst performers in our APIs have things they're doing really well at, right? And they do feel proud of some of the things that they're doing well. So it's really a fascinating. I mean, I never really grew up as an analytical person, but I just love the analytical part of it because it just leads to fascinating. It just gives you a better baseline of conversation. But I think it's got to be I think it's got to be used as a coaching mechanism. And I think Thomas was going here a little bit but it can't be a stick. It can't be to the guy where he's like tense and he's shaking in his seat thinking, oh my God, the metrics are coming up. I'm going to look bad here. It's not. So I think that would be the key is it's not a weapon. It's a coaching mechanism. And you got to stay true to that. As soon as you use it as a weapon, then I think that's when you're going to get a lot of tenseness with the team.
Enabling a helper and seeing through challenges is more what you express is your personality and the approach you were taking. Out of curiosity, what sales methodology have you chosen?
So when you say sales methodology, what do you mean?
A training system such as Miller Hyman, Medic, name it, you get it. Value proposal, value added selling, blah blah blah.
Yes. So so we did put in. We worked with a local company called In the Funnel. Mark Cox was his name, who helped with the sales training portion of it. The thing with our sales training, the way that we said that to our sales team was, as long as there's the will, we'll give you the skill. Okay. So regardless of the results, if you have the will and you demonstrate that you're trying, we create a safe environment here. Like so we're not like. At the end of the quarter, we're firing our two lowest performers. So we will stick by somebody, and we have stuck by people if they're demonstrating the will. But if they don't have the will and they don't have the results, then we have to put a good team on the ice, and we gotta be able to win. So then maybe it's not a good fit for them, right? And so once we sort of have this system in place that we identify the results aren't there, we identify that their pipeline's not there, we identify all these issues, then it really becomes a coaching exercise with that one individual to get them back on a plan and to be able to do that. But so that's the methodology that we use. It's not a Miller Hyman. I've been through some of their courses and stuff like that. It's very I want to say I'm all about simplicity and getting to the tactical approach with the sales guys on what we know what works, right? It's getting out there, it's identifying opportunities, it's helping our customers make sure that their system's running well or they're making the right solution.
How many people are involved in a buying decision by your products and services you are selling?
A lot more than there used to be. Yeah,
It's interesting. That could be from 1 to 500.
Yeah, no, it's. I think right now it's at least 9 people.
Wow.
Yeah, when we get to the
9.
capital projects, yeah, and then some of our capital projects are so big with some of these companies that go right to the CEO, who's really is the decision maker, who you can't access. With our service team, depending on the size of it, like if it's like a small repair, then your maintenance manager he's the guy that's going to make the decision whether or not you go ahead or not. Right, but as these maintenance things get bigger, there could be 2 or 3 involved. So it's always a challenge, as you know. You got 9. If you have 9 people there, it's lowest price seems to be the common denominator, with the more people involved in the buying decision, because then people start, it just becomes more challenging. But yeah, it's a pretty challenging environment sometimes with some of these deals that we're involved with. But that's like anybody in software sales or any other organization. It just seems more people are involved now.
Agreed.
I'm still quite fascinated about it. That's a deviation, actually, about the coaching approach. Did you see some change of behavior in your teams?
Yeah, absolutely, Thomas. Yeah, I think the biggest thing to me was using the data to be able to dispel whatever it is that they were talking about. And the CRM had the data, and it's just there. It's like, what are you seeing here? And it's and as I said, people, I mean, I also have some core beliefs that everybody here wants to do a good job. Everybody wants to win. Like, that's my core belief starting out with every conversation. So having that core belief allows me to approach things in a way that is authentic. So that was that's what I think what it was, Thomas. I think that's where you start to see the good results. And once people feel safe, then and they feel like they're not being judged, they're going to say, hey, you know what? I'm actually scared to go make cold calls. Okay, we can work with that, because everything starts with the truth, right? If that's okay, I can work with that, right? But I can't work with I've made a bunch of cold calls and no one's answering the phone. That's a result if somebody's afraid, and so you got to try to make that safe environment, I think. And as I said, I'm not perfect at it at all, but it's something that I strive towards to do with the team. And I try to coach the sales managers to also have that attitude as well too with the team, because I think that's how you get the most out of people.
Right. To what extent does your team work like a team, where certain people, players use their strengths in a deal, but it's not one salesperson, one deal?
Yeah, that is a great question. Yeah, so on our team, on our service team, we have regions, and in the regions, they are a team, and so they are in a way, I want to say they win together. Put it that way. Okay, and our capital project team, there's a unicorn out there that is a highly technical salesperson. I'm yet to meet that person. Right, I'm yet to meet that person who can really have those 2 skills. So when we approach these large jobs, we usually have to put 2 or 3 people on them that have different skill sets to be able to have the job, and they share in the success of that. But it's pretty. I think the thing is, we're lucky because we do and encourage a more of a humble approach with our sales team, and we always talk about more so the wins of the company or the wins of the team, and so it does encourage some more group work in there. So
no, that's understandable. I mean, taking myself, I'd make a good sales technician because I memorize useless information, and in this case, useful information because it's helpful to the customer. I've got decent soft skills, but I could not sell water in the desert. So,
well, at least you know where you're starting from, but I'm sure you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of our guys on our sales team are either like ex-service mechanics or ex-engineers, so they have no formal skill. So because when you're in the plant and something's not working, a maintenance manager doesn't have time to deal with a sales guy. They need to know, like, what the heck do I need to do because my production's down, right? You better know what you need to do. So that's why, again, I think the sales CRM was so enabling, because through some pre-written code, a service mechanic, amazingly brilliant people to be able to work with electrical and refrigerants, but writing a proposal, it's maybe not something that they're necessarily swimming with the tide. So by having these pre-written proposals, the guys have the confidence, okay, this is well written, it's easy for me to produce, I'm going to bang it out. It's out of there, and I can go focus on developing my next opportunity.
It's a hammer of information, such as you are not on the customer with salespeople, but with hyphen knowledgeable peoples. They know the technology, they know where pain points might be, and they know how to use a screwdriver as well, such as they have their manuals on board. And so next approach would have been, how do you manage field service management with what you have at your hands?
Yeah, so we use SAP for that. We use SAP Field Service.
Oh, I would have a suggestion spontaneously to get something easier to handle.
Yes, that is definitely a lot different than CRM. Like with Zoho, it's extreme. Like I am not an IT person, but I do a lot of the work myself within the CRM very easily. It's very easy for me to customize it and do what I want. I wouldn't even know where to start with our SAP system.
Yeah,
like it's you know, it's like an IRL bar, right?
I'm extremely career limiting honest. This is why I have to become independent, because nobody wanted to listen to my truth. It is, if you look into the field service management product, which is young, 6 to 9 months young in Soho, it's a good start. There's a lot of beneficial stuff already in, but knowing the SAP S/4HANA or the former ECC 6.0, what they have there in dispatching, you would need another system which is helping you to make your life easier. Last episode, we had a friendly chap, Johannes Parensen from GMS. They are extremely knowledgeable in that one. Just take this as a little hint.
Okay.
Another perspective, very honestly speaking, is cover the buying center is so fantastic if you can do it. So we have had a chap here in one of our conversations who was focusing on exactly that spot. And I see that if you have 9 persons to talk to, that could be a very interesting aspect to go into more depths, to see where you can help and enable your folks in knowing what you know, but you not have it in the system for everybody to access.
Yeah.
Because visualizing a buying center is a nasty thing, yeah? And one has to rethink and fiddle around a bit. It's different than funnel management, yeah?
It is. I totally agree with you. Absolutely. Okay, so I'll look up those episodes. Thank you for that.
The guy
Always
is
happy to
called
get more
Kevin
people
Dixon.
watching our stuff.
Finally a viewer.
It's simply that I love the way you are going forward, and I love the way how you work together with your team. And so if 2 name drops could be of help, it could become a win-win-win-win. Yeah. Boxstep is the tool's name, and the man is Kevin Dixon.
Okay.
And he's a Brit. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, it's good to know. Okay.
Which should not be negative, but he is extremely focused on that pain point, cover the buying center, which is in some sales methodologies covered or not. Yeah. But if you see that your people know who to talk to, who would be the backup, who could be the guy to talk to if it comes to finance, and then you have at a sudden the 9 people in their different roles and how important they are to your teams. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Because I do believe in my heart that price doesn't matter.
No, definitely not.
Especially not with refrigeration.
Yes.
With refrigeration, yeah.
If you have the secret weapon, you have the magic, you have the quality, and you have the life-saving situation, such as just recall last summer, and you are helping them to survive in whatever area of the business is in. It's very important, and price doesn't matter.
No.
If the system doesn't work, your customer has a waiting pool, and that's not what they paid for.
Yeah, no, I feel very fortunate to be in an industry where we do offer mission critical because people do answer the phone. And I think it could be challenging for some out there where you're not selling a mission critical product.
And I found it extremely encouraging that you have also sustainability on your radar. So
Yes.
that is something like when you described that naturally harvesting, I really had somebody with an ice pick going to a large ice block,
Yeah,
cutting
yeah.
off. So um, uh, just enlighten me how you are managing to work so sustainable with your solutions and products.
Well, yeah. So thank you for allowing me to talk about it. It's at its core, we move thermal energy. So for every unit of electricity that you put into a refrigeration system, it could create 3 to 5 units of thermal energy. Okay. So think about that. So all we're doing is we're transporting thermal energy from one place to another. That's refrigeration at its basics. What's crazy, and when you think about it, is take a large meat plant or an ice rink, let's say. They're paying to move that energy, and typically you see it go outside. You see it in smoke.
Yeah.
All that heat goes outside. But then at the same time, they're paying for natural gas for their washdown or for their ice resurfacer. So what we are developed, and we just have a brand new product that we just released a couple weeks ago called Thermal Force One. And what Thermal Force One is, it's a single product that really all it is moving the energy optimally within the building. So we extract that heat from the one place, and then we move it to other places within the building, and we manage that thermal energy. So what we're doing is we're recycling that energy, because the cheapest energy you pay for is the one you've already created. And so, and really the whole premise behind it is the fact that people are trying to become net zero. And natural gas is a major contributor to greenhouse gases. So between offsetting the greenhouse gases from natural gas, moving the thermal energy within the building, and using only natural refrigerants that in the event that they do leak out, they don't cause global warming issues, we are now really solving some issues. Like we put in just recently in a city in Canada, a single system that we would put into an ice rink, and it's heating and cooling a whole community, right? Through district heating and cooling. So there's no gas boilers there. There's no air conditioners at these people's homes. We're cycling the heat. So we made a hard decision as an organization, to say we are no longer going to manufacture our equipment with these freons. And you know what, I will give props to Germany, because they are one of the leading countries in the world that have put their foot down and said, we do not want these synthetic refrigerants here. We do not want the forever chemicals polluting our waters, and we don't want these issues. And so by using and piggybacking on some of the stuff that Germany has done as a country, we've been able to actually mimic that in a way to say, as a company, we're not going to do that, because we don't have to, because there's solutions there. And we have lost sales because of it. We have lost sales, but I think that in the end, this strategy is going to pay off, because it's where we need to go if we're going to really seriously have any chance at all of solving climate change.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, sorry, Marshall, there is one trade fair, as I was very long in the trade fair and show business as well in Nuremberg, where they have all the international stuff in cooling and breathing and energy. So, what you exactly mentioned is one floor above my wife, which is in one of the natural preservation enthusiastic organizations, is very engaged. She said the loss of energy through the steps, through a maintenance or a closed circle, or that you have that that cooling cycle or that energy cycle, and no losses in the system, that you may be, or you are already the facilities manager's best friend, yeah, in energy conserving and all that. That's really cool. Yeah?
It is, but it's still a big challenge, because the biggest challenge is the way we've always done things. And surprisingly, even what I just explained to you guys, it all makes sense to us here, yet there's still thousands of plants operating where they're paying to get rid of their energy, and they're paying to bring in new energy at a huge cost to the environment. So I mean, anyways, we'll get there, right? We'll get there, but I'm excited to be in this industry at this time because of because of all the innovation, and it's a lot different. Be like actually not greenwashing in a sense. It's actually being part of the solution in a meaningful way, and we have the solutions, and I look forward to continue and watching where this company goes over the next 10 years as this climate change becomes even more intense. And I think that what I'm seeing, the biggest shift, Thomas said, what have you seen over the past 20 years? What I've seen in the past 2 years personally is there's a shift between being sort of we're doing this to we're actually doing this. And I think that the positioning that we are as a company is one that's going to help us capitalize on that by being part of the solution.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just interested to hear about your continued struggles against Newton's laws of thermodynamics. It's a fight you can't win, but you're making a very, very valiant struggle.
We are, yes, we are for sure. We're using what we have and trying to maintain that heat, and because as you know, energy can't be created or destroyed, so we're just recycling it within the building. And the perfect combination that I would see is a cold storage facility beside a greenhouse, right? Because you can sit there, you can grow all your own food there, use all the waste energy to heat your greenhouse when they can't have it, and then right from the greenhouse right to the cold storage facility where they can keep it at a cool temperature, and then send it out. So I think there's some innovative things that are coming, and it's pretty exciting. And technology and all those sorts of stuff will play a role.
Yeah, and it benefits the person on the street too. I mean, every one of us has walked past a building that had a large refrigeration or air conditioning unit on it. It has to vent that heat somewhere.
It does.
And on a hot day when the air conditioner is running and you walk past that, it's a misery. To reuse that heat is, it's simple and it's brilliant. And I'm happy to hear that someone's actually taking advantage of that idea.
Thank you.
And you have a brilliant name for that, as you named it and name drop ThermoForce 1. Yeah, that is cinema in my head, and it's an anchor I will never ever forget. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you. So it's fun. It's a fun spot to be in, right? So I'm happy about it.
Continuing a little with business models here. So in how far is refrigeration as a service a topic?
It is a big topic. And we've done several different business cases on it because you see it, because all software you buy now, you guys are well more versatile than I. You can't buy software anymore. When I bought ACT years ago, I went to our local store and I picked up a copy, and it was mine.
They pulled the box off the shelf.
It was a box off the shelf, and so it's a very big capital purchase. They do refrigeration service in developing countries like South Africa, where they're trying to help enable a community, because most of the in developing countries, and I know that South Africa is not necessarily a developing country, but farmers grow food, and a lot of it goes to waste because they have no means of cooling it. So what they try to do is a cooling as a service to try to help the farmers store their food a little bit longer, get to market, and help some of the issues with world hunger. So that's something that on a smaller scale that seems to work, because the farmer pays a monthly fee and then he's able to store it. When you get to a large capital building, like a big one of these big meat producers, the refrigeration system is really like your veins in your body. It's so integrated within the building that you just can't, like the repo man just can't go pick up the system and take it away. Right. So and the cost is just, we haven't been able to reach that hurdle yet of the right value proposition, Thomas, to be able to actually able to do it. But I'd love to be able to do it, because I think it would bring some of these more advanced thoughts that we have in regards to movement of thermal energy more palatable for the market.
Yeah, it's a little grim, but when I hear refrigeration as a service, I think back to the start of COVID, when there weren't places to keep bodies, and we were using pallet trucks and other things.
Ice rigs.
Yeah, those things as morgues on demand.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a depressing thing to think about, but there's an example.
one has to be practical and solution oriented. And that is exactly where I see the farmers. If you have, for instance, in the not so developed and highly sophisticated countries, India with some tuk-tuks, or Thailand, Phuket, or areas where I've traveled through, that would help them tremendously at an affordable price to get their things to market, still fresh, still nice and shiny and valuable, and not that you have already, you are buying a limited lifetime, such as if you go here to a market and you want like to see some fresh food, it has only a limited lifespan. And to extend that, I recall when I was in shop and shelf design, that we had an instrument where you had a vaporization of water over the food, the fresh food, which kept it cooled, and even in the simple non-cool areas, still fresher than without that vaporization system. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I almost envision like a sea can with some solar panel, small refrigeration system, and it just would be with also a reciprocal so guys can charge their cell phone. And that's a big problem in development too, right? And I think if you had that, I think that would be a massive step towards. It's not even. It's just about how do we solve world hunger in a sense, and knowing that like 30 or 40% of the food that's produced in developing countries goes to waste where they need it the most. And if you think back, like, and I know that we're running out of time here, but if you think back about, refrigeration is something that we never think about in our lives, but it touches us because our medicine, our food, our comfort, all has to do with this process. Before that, life was pretty difficult, and so it's. I think we could give some of that to some of those places, and we'd love to develop something like that one day.
I believe you have been to Disneyland and to Disney World, and the Wheel of Progress is one of the things where, for instance, you see the GE product cycles, and where they show the fridges, and from the ice block cutting to the real first refrigerator to how it is developed. It is something which is touching, yeah, and you have a picture in your head again, and if I just imagine that one can combine your services with a balcony solar-powered panel, then at a low cost and with hands-on technology, there could be a lot of making things better in an easy way. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So So, anyways, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
Not yet
Guys.
done.
We're not done with you yet.
Okay.
Not so quick, my friend.
Wait with the thank you
No.
till you heard the question for the famous last words, which is usually what we end with.
Okay.
So it's actually, after this whole discussion was quite a detour from the original topic, which was a great one, by the way.
It's
I'd
been
like
a
to continue
fantastic
with one of them.
conversation.
Thank you.
And I'd like to pick up on the coaching topic that you mentioned. So, in realization that I recently had a run-in with someone who I very, very much esteem about topic of leadership. What is a leader, in your opinion?
Yeah, so a leader is somebody who enables and serves and enables their team to succeed, right? And that's really what I see is somebody who's working for their people, and then through that, being part of, like, allowing them to have the success, but being there when they need some help, and asking the right questions, and understanding how to help them through some of their challenging times without judging. And I think that, and of course, Thomas, having a vision of where you want to go and being able to share that in a way that resonates with the team. So that's my definition.
Perfect.
Great.
Can't ask for more. Mine was a bit shorter, so I summed it up to a sound bite that basically says the same. A leader is someone who makes people want to do things.
That's true. That is so true. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Was qualified as a soundbite, so it's probably not opportune to use it.
Somebody who makes me want to punch them in the face is a leader. It's a good way of thinking about that. Aggression as a service.
That's right. Aggression as a service. Yeah, they're out there. They're called hitmen.
That's our business model.
Interesting perspective.
Let's not go
David,
into that business model.
And if you are on a run, we won't keep you. But I enjoyed so much, honestly, our very vivid exchange of ideas. You're sharing with us and the audience how you started that journey, that you arrived at a certain point. But there is so much more to talk about.
Yeah.
So just look into your calendar when you have a free space again.
Well, I always have time for Thomas, and you guys seem like great guys too. So I'm happy to come on whenever you like. And thank you for letting me speak a little bit about refrigeration to your listeners. So thank you. I love talking about it. So thank you very much.
Oh, you've actually got me excited about the idea of natural refrigerants again.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Then thanks for being here. Let's go backstage and